Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on this month's episode of the Go Shout Love podcast. We're thrilled to introduce you to Florence, our featured kiddo for November. Florence lives in the Kansas City area with her amazing parents, Jesse and Christina, and her sweet baby sister, Olive. In this episode, you'll learn more about Florence's journey and how her life is inspiring people to fight for inclusion for kids with special needs. It's this fight in Florence that led us to this month's Different is Never Less t-shirt design. We know you will love getting to meet Florence and hope you'll join us in shouting love for her in November. Also, before we jump in, if you've been on the fence about becoming a monthly shouter through a t-shirt subscription, don't wait any longer. We're going to be offering some awesome deals in December that are exclusive to subscribers only, so subscribe now. Thanks for listening and shouting with us.
Tell us a little bit about how you guys met and where kind of you were in life before kids.
Well, she's going to tell a different story, I'm sure, but we didn't know each other obviously out of college. She went to a different school than I did, but we both ended up working at Hallmark.
Okay.
And we saw each other one day, actually, Ash Wednesday at church. And it was just kind of, one of those deals that I saw her walking in. I was like, oh, there's a pretty girl. And then a few days later after that, we connected on Facebook, of all things.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I recognized her, and then I realized it was from church. And then we went on our first date probably that weekend.
So when you saw her at church, did you know that you worked together? Like, did you?
Yeah.
Hallmark's pretty big, right? Downtown
Right.
Kansas City, Hallmark,
But,
right?
Ash Wednesday, everybody who's going to go to church all leave Hallmark at the same time for that
Gotcha.
one
Okay.
mass.
Okay.
And so it's a packed church, and it's mostly Hallmark people.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So probably wasn't the right time to make a move.
Exactly.
Service,
Yeah. Right.
Give it a couple
Yep.
days.
Yep.
Okay. So he said that your version was going to be different. Why is that? What do you think is different in your version?
I don't really.
More detailed.
Well, yeah, but I don't really. I think I leave the Facebook part out of it because I actually was the one that looked for him.
Okay.
And friended him on Facebook.
Well, that's kind of surprising that you leave that part out. That connected on Facebook versus she sought me out on Facebook.
Yeah.
That even makes it sound better.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So I reached out to him, and then we spent probably every day together after that. So we just we had a lot of fun.
Yeah. So you guys live in Olathe, which is a suburb of Kansas City now.
Yes.
Did you live in Kansas City, like more downtown at that time?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay,
We
so
lived
you
on
were-
the plaza.
Yeah. Oh man, you guys were living it up.
Yeah, we did. Definitely did. And then when we decided to try to start our family, we said, okay, we're not moving north of 75th.
Mm-hmm.
We're not moving north. We're inching. We're not going to move to the suburbs completely.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are in the heart of the suburbs. Yeah.
But you have a beautiful home.
Thank you.
So had you talked about family and starting a family, and were you on the same page of timeline, and you guys were both kind of excited about starting your family?
Yeah, the first date, actually. We talked about family and how important family was, and that was really one of the things that...
Not us having a family, just our families in general.
Yeah,
We're going to talk about that.
I just knew that family was important, and
Sure.
that, I could tell one day that
you could kind of see your values aligning.
Right,
Yeah.
very much so. And that was one thing that really attracted me to him, was that, he came from a big family, and that was really important to him, because I am the same way. I think we had different views on how many kids at first. I think we're back on the same page now. He came from...
Does that mean he's on your page now?
Yeah, now he's on my page.
I thought that might be the case.
Yeah, less than 5. Yeah, no more than... Yeah. So, yeah.
So when did you find out that you were expecting Florence?
So Jesse and I went through the IVF process.
Okay.
And actually, I was on a business trip. So we started going through the IVF process. What was it? Like 2 years after we were married, because we spent the first 2 years really traveling, and connecting more on a deeper level. And then we decided to start a family, and that's when we found out we needed to have the IVF process. And so we started going through that in 2012, and it took a while to get pregnant, and we finally were successful. And I was on a business trip actually in Los Angeles, and I had to sneak away and take a blood pregnancy test on the Las Vegas Strip.
What?
Yeah, I took a cab there without Jesse. And the results get, it's stat or whatever, faxed to our doctor back in Kansas. Well, then I was in meetings, so I was
You were
waiting.
there physically, but you probably weren't present in the meetings, like
No,
in your mind.
not at all.
Like
right.
Following the blood test.
Exactly. Yeah. I was like waiting for the results. I'm like, these are supposed to be stat. And then something happened to where I was presenting in one of the meetings, and that's when the call came through, and I saw it, and I thought, okay, they'll leave a message. Didn't leave a message. And so I get a phone call from him about 5 minutes later, and he's like, well, the nurse just called, and I go, don't tell me. Is it good or bad? And he's like, well, that's going to give you the answer.
Right.
And I was like, okay, tell me. So he was the one actually that got to tell me that we were pregnant.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So it was
so what was Jesse, what was the emotion? Because that's an unusual situation. What was it like to be the one to hear that news directly from the nurse and then have to communicate that?
Well, I mean, when you get in those situations, when the doctor calls, all of a sudden these emotions, they all come up. And a lot of it's negative, what if it's positive? But I think a lot of it is you're preparing yourself for the worst. So then when she says, and they do a good job, they don't beat around the bush. She said it's positive, and so I was super excited. And then they reel it in, say this is test one. We still have to do another test,
Gotcha.
but it's a good sign. And so it felt, just a huge sigh of relief. It felt awesome. And then I didn't even, know what to do when I called. So when I called Christina, I tried to be as even-toned as possible because I didn't know if she wanted to wait to come home or what it was.
Yeah.
So
had to put on the poker face.
Right. Tried to.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I was able to tell her over the phone because waiting another 2 days or whatever it was would have been hard.
Yeah. Was there any point during the pregnancy when it was like, certain milestones maybe weren't being hit or with Florence, or did everything seem to be checking out medically?
Something that we forgot to mention was we were pregnant with twins with Florence. And it wasn't until the first scan at 8 weeks that we had seen that there was two, and one the doctor said the heartbeat just wasn't as strong, but it could just be because it is, really early. 8 weeks is super early to find out.
Right.
And he had us come back at, I think, another 2 weeks, and that baby did not make it. So
even by 10 weeks, you had found out about
yes,
the second one.
Yes. And that baby, actually, they just said that your body would absorb it, and I didn't have to go through any special procedures or anything like that. And that Florence would be okay. I had a fantastic pregnancy. There was no signs of distress of any sort throughout the whole pregnancy. And when you go through IVF, you have a lot of scans and a lot of, doctor checkups to make sure that everything's going okay. And there was nothing that stood out to anybody and I even had a level 2 sonogram where it's just a little bit more invasive because I was an IVF, and nothing seemed abnormal to them.
All the way through?
All the way through.
And when she was born, what was the feeling like, Jesse, as it to be, you prepared yourself for a couple of years, really, going through the IVF process, and then through the pregnancy. What was the feeling of becoming a dad?
Well, I mean, it was, again, I mean, I feel like the whole journey was kind of up and down. That was the first time that we actually knew something wasn't quite right, because she started having her contractions, and we went into the hospital, and they put her on the strip, and Florence's heartbeat was like a solid 120. And we're like, oh, she's totally fine, just relax. And the doctor's like, actually, that's a huge sign that something's wrong, because they expect it to be all over the board. Mm-hmm. And so we ended up doing an unplanned emergency C-section. And so that was scary, because they take her away, and you got to just kind of wait there. And it seems like a long time, and I'm sure it felt like a long time to you. And then they come grab me. They do the surgery. And then when Florence came out, she looked perfect. And so all those worries were gone, and it was like, this is amazing. She looked awesome, because that was the first thing she said was, what's wrong with her? And nothing was wrong with her. And she looked,
Yeah, the doctor actually even said, you're going to have trouble with this one. We don't know what all that was about, but she's completely fine when she first came out. And we, that was just a huge relief. And I was pretty out of it. So Jesse kind of, over the next several hours, he was really the one that was getting all of the information and hearing things. But
so despite the emergency C-section, she didn't have to go to the NICU or anything
So she went to our room for about an hour. And she just wasn't, doing what they wanted to do respiratory-wise. Mm-hmm. And so after that, then they took her up there. It's like, these are just checkups. She'll probably be down in 6 hours.
So breathing was the primary
indicator
at the time that something might be off a little bit.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And so then those 6 hours pass, and she was still kind of getting over everything. And I was going up and down, kind of, passing along the information. And it was it's respiratory. Mm-hmm. And she had oxygen, and that's still, they said a lot of babies who have C-sections don't go through the normal process, so their lungs may not be working like they should, or she's not pulling in as much as she should. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we thought. And so while we were waiting for Florence to kind of have her lungs kick in like normal, she would go up and started breastfeeding, and we started doing all the typical things, still not thinking anything was wrong, until she actually noticed during feeding what she thought was a seizure that nobody else really noticed yet, but she had been doing them quite a bit. And it turned out that they were. And then they called a neurologist in, and they did an EEG. He saw something, but he didn't want to tell me what it was, because he goes, more than likely that's not it, because it's really, really rare. And then it ended up being Ohtahara Syndrome, the burst suppression brain pattern is what it was, which he didn't want to say, but that's what it ended up being.
Kind of stepping through the journey from there, were there others? So at this point, there's breathing issues, there's the seizures that you noticed during the feeding. Are there other key indicators that kind of developed over the coming months that confirmed that, or how did they test and find out for sure that she did have that syndrome?
So over the next, they just kept saying she had really low tone as well, and all this medical jargon and language, we had no idea what they were saying. Right. And I kept saying, well, does that mean she has muscular dystrophy? Does that mean she has cerebral palsy? Some of the more well-known childhood diseases I was aware of, and I was saying, asking if that's really what it was. And they said, no. And I said, well, talk to me about low tone. I don't know what that means. Right. And so when they explained it to me, that really was the crux of her breathing issues. And they, explained that really is a neurological issue with the rest of her body, her brain communicating with the rest of her body. And that was creating more issues than anything else, that she didn't have 10 things wrong with her. She had one. And that one thing was causing havoc and disruption across her whole body.
Yeah.
To Jesse's point, I don't think they thought it was as severe as Ohtahara Syndrome.
Because she still wasn't.
She wasn't seizing every single second of the day. She was
so
still...
even though the doctor on day 3 knew that was a possibility,
Yes.
it wasn't confirmed on day 3.
No.
Right. I got you.
No,
Okay.
not at all. We ran so many tests, several lumbar punctures, every blood test imaginable we ran, and everything came back in the clear. It wasn't until she was having some major episodes because of a certain medication that they were trying to control her seizures. They made this medication, fosphenytoin, a seizure medication, made it actually way worse. And she was having really scary issues. And so they said, we need to transfer you to Mercy.
We were at Mercy for 2 hours when they wanted to wait because we got there late. They wanted to wait to do the EEG, but she was still having a lot of issues. So the doctor on call decided to go ahead and do it. And within 2 or 3 hours of being, he also said, this is what it is.
Well, we were sitting in that room, and the doctors looked like they were watching a ghost. And him and I both just said, we can't do this. They're not talking to us yet. They're just looking at the screen, and we need them to talk to us.
It's your daughter.
Yeah.
It's your daughter laying here.
Exactly. They're just looking like they saw a ghost. And I said, I'm going down the hall. Come get me when they want to talk to us. So they came and said, we need to talk to you guys in this conference room. And still we weren't thinking it was that bad. And when they sat us down in that conference room, they just said, your daughter has a really rare form of epilepsy. It's called Ohtahara Syndrome. You're lucky if you have a year. Do you have any questions? And him and I just looked at each other, and I mean, what other questions? There were, yes, of course, there was 1,000,005 questions, but we were so numb. And at that point, I knew that it was going to be a battle. It was going to be a fight.
Yeah. Whatever
it took. I still kind of was in the denial phase of, well, it can be cured. It can be fixed. Where's the best medication? It turns out there is no cure. There is no medication.
Yeah.
So that was the confirmation that she did have that. However, after that, I said, that's fine. We're not running any more tests. Don't poke her. Like, let's enjoy her. If I only have a year, don't call me into conference rooms and want to talk medical. I want to be with my kid. And so I went back to her room and I just started rocking her and just talking positive to her. Like, doctors don't know everything. We believe in a higher power. We're going to do this. We're going to fight for you. And just keep fighting with us. Keep giving us what you're giving us.
It's been amazing to watch, as parents, your interactions with her, and even, one of the things that she needs regularly is a suction. And you guys do it so naturally. Like, it's just kind of become part of your rhythm and part of your care for your daughter. And I think, for someone who's just kind of dropping in and being able to see someone, a glimpse into somebody else's life, I don't think they recognize, myself included, the everyday impact on just your life. So talk to me a little bit about that element of how a day looks so different in caring for Florence versus, if it was, her situation wasn't like that. If you didn't, I know suctioning, I know you guys have a beautiful new home that required some extras or some customization in order to be able to care for her. Talk a little bit about that.
I think now we really can talk to it because we do have another child that is typically developing. And so now we do know the differences, and they're pretty drastic for caring for a child with high medical needs and one that does not. And, I think keeping her safe in a safe position, which is the majority of the time laying down, because gravity, when you are sitting up, your spit goes down your esophagus faster than lying down. You can swallow it and it's slower, so it's more manageable for somebody that has low tone. So getting her up and going and doing anything is a huge feat for both, Jesse and I and her, really. Ultimately, her comfortability is the number one priority.
Sure.
And so, where we might have, and, still do, if we have the right staff, if we have the right nursing and care for Florence, getting in the car and even going for donuts or coffee on the weekend, that's not a thing in our life with Florence spontaneously. It takes major planning.
I think that's the biggest thing is everything that we do is proactive with Florence. Whereas everybody has their challenges, but with a typical kid, you might just be more reactive. They're crying, they're hungry, you get it figured out. You wait for them to use the bathroom, then you change them. With Florence, everything has to be thought out ahead.
So you mentioned having another child, Olive. She's adorable. She's 6 months, right?
Yes.
How did Florence shift your perspective or change your perspective, if at all, going into Olive's pregnancy?
Yeah, I think it made it scary because we didn't have any issues through the whole thing. And so I think that was always in the back of your mind. And even though it was, like she said, de novo, it was genetic, but it was something that only happened in Florence. Because of that, that still gave us, the numbers they gave us, it's a 25% chance that could happen again. And, we were happy, obviously, when we got pregnant with Olive, but it was always in the back of our minds.
Sure.
And we talked about that.
Yeah.
It was, it was hard to really let it be a normal, pregnancy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were never really truly comfortable. She has made our marriage, what do you call it? Non-destructible. I don't even know. Indestructible. So I knew while I didn't want another child to have to go through that, I knew we could handle it.
Yeah. How has it been to see Florence as a big sister?
That's good. It's, you don't maybe live in the negative moments as much, and so it's just been a big light, just since we're home all the time. Yeah. We see the medical stuff constantly, and to not see that as much has been a big, big bright spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Christina, you talked about, you guys met at work.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you come to the decision? Because right now you stay home, right?
Mm-hmm.
With Florence all the time.
Yes.
Primary caregiver.
Yes.
How was that? How'd you come to that decision?
Because she was successful at what she did, and actually she had just gotten a promotion that she had been trying to get for a long time, into licensing with Hallmark, and she walked away from it. And I remember in Hallmark, they did what they needed to do, sure. and they gave us some time, more time than what was expected, and it got to the point that they said, we need you to come back, and she said no. It wasn't really much of a discussion. We just knew what we needed, and she did it.
Yeah.
And I don't really talk about that very much because I don't want people to misinterpret it or misconstrue that I'm enjoying what I'm doing right now, and that this is definitely this is where I need to be
sure.
right now. But there are conversations that I have in private with Jesse about I miss the accolades that you get for doing a good job, or the spotlights that you get when you work on big projects that are impacting the community. Mm-hmm. Because as a mom, you don't really get those accolades as much, but the things that Florence has accomplished, while people might not be spreading that throughout a work environment or to other people, she's my accomplishment.
That's awesome.
So I have to, go back to perspective on that to say, and I've put a lot of work into her, and I'm really proud of myself for
and her for trusting me, and proud of myself for learning and being more open to the scary parts of being a medical mom.
Yeah. One of the other things that you've maybe fits into this, where you've channeled some of that energy, is fighting for inclusion on behalf of other kids in the same situation as Florence.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about how, and both of you, how maybe your perspective or eyes are open to the need for inclusion that you maybe didn't have before you were in the shoes you're in now.
Absolutely. I feel like even in my first couple of years with Florence, I was head down, worried about her, and everything was, I had blinders on, even to, sadly, my marriage and myself, for a long time. And when we took Florence to her therapy school, the Leon Britton Center, my eyes started opening up more to what's going on in our community for kids like Florence. And that started growing and being on my heart way more. And I was watching other parents and other caregivers and how they were having self-care. And I just started interacting more with my community, our tribe now, our special needs world. And just, I've met so many great people, and they've just influenced my day-to-day even now. Normal things like shopping for your daughter. I was always scared to buy something, and another fellow special needs mom said, I go to the Disney store several times a month with my special needs child and let them pick something out, because I would have done that with a typical child. And I was so scared to take Florence out into the community. I wanted to protect her, both from germs, but also from people that would stare or ask questions. Sure. I just wasn't there yet. And so then I started to realize that no, her purpose is so big here on earth. And I took it on to say, okay, then I need to help her live that purpose out. I need to help her have her voice. And so that's when I started linking with other people in the community to help get knowledge and for myself about inclusion in the community and how we can make it better. And it's not just in the community, family members and friends, you hear a lot, we don't know what to say, so they don't say anything. Yeah. And that has just been such an emotional thing for me, because it's such a stigma that they have to even know what to say. It's just be normal. Yeah. She is a 4-year-old little girl before she has Ohtahara, and talk to her just like you would talk to a 4-year-old little girl. She likes Disney just like any other 4-year-old little girl likes. She might have to be lying down and she can't sit on your lap, but you can lie right next to her. I mean, there are things that when I watch people interact with her, sometimes I die a little inside because they're so awkward. They don't know what to say. They don't say anything at all. They won't even go in her room. They just, now that we have Olive too, she is typical. She'll smile back at you. She's interactive. So they gravitate towards her. Right. And I love that too, because Olive needs, of course, she needs love and attention and all of that. And I don't want to take away from her, but I just see what's happening with the dynamics of friends and family and outside the community. Right. They're just shy. They don't know what to say. Yeah. And it's like, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to be any way but yourself and normal.
And I think, I think you nailed it. I think there's a huge demographic of people that fit in between those spaces, that we've kind of identified it, that's kind of where Go Shout Love sits, is in the middle of these families who want to support families on rare medical journeys, but they need to hear that. They need to hear that just walk in like the same way that you would and communicate the same way that you would, almost in a way, almost permission, if you will, to be invited into that life. Because I think a lot of people, some, no doubt, some are harsh and are negative, and that's, you're going to find that. I think there's such a huge portion of people, though, that they want to be supportive and encouraging, and they don't have the tools or the key that's unlocked in them to say, just do it, just step forward and do it. And so I think I think the work and the passion that you have on just speaking of inclusion and helping organizations from an educational standpoint, and even from, I know you've worked with work on playgrounds, helping get inclusive playgrounds in the Kansas City area. All of that work is going to help that conversation go further faster on just everyday families figuring out how to rally around people they love, but have maybe unintentionally kept at a distance.
Yeah, kids, something that I've learned just in this journey, before I had Florence, I will admit my eyes weren't open either. And I look back on that person and, just opening my heart. She's my daughter. So yes, it was organic. But now I have these children in this community. They are amazing, amazing, amazing gifts. And just opening your heart to even learn about them, be around them, they give you the gift of life. They breathe life into you that you can't get anywhere else. Mm-hmm. Nowhere else can you. They just, it's so easy. Once you just step forward and make that first leap to even hold their hand or go up to the parent and just talk and have a conversation like you would with a typical developing child, you will gain so much personally out of that. And that's really something a lot of people, and I was missing too. I was missing out by walking past that family with a child in a wheelchair, or, by maybe not participating in somebody's life that had a disability that I could have.
Right.
Just being normal that amazing. Day, just smiling. You don't have to look away, and you don't have to stare and be involved. You don't have to be involved, but just, if you were to smile at a kid walking by, you can do that to any kid.
Sure.
I think a lot of schools have programs now too, peer programs. And so with that, I think parents should encourage their kids to be a part of that. Absolutely. So that way they don't become adults that are scared. Not that they're bad people. They're scared to interact with.
They grow up equipped.
Yep.
To be more engaged.
Yep. Yeah. Because that's the way we were. We didn't grow up to be able to do that. And it took our daughter to learn.
Yeah. What are some goals or needs that you guys have in the near term that we can, as much as possible, rally behind and support?
So we just came across we're always researching new therapies or medications or any type of treatments that are going to help Florence live her best life. And we just came across actually several Kansas City and surrounding area moms have been taking their child to it's basically a physical therapy. It's called ABM, Annette Benyel method. And it focuses on neuro pathways for movement in your body and body health based on your brain and building different new pathways. And it is not covered by insurance. And the therapist, there's only one in, I think, really Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Iowa, and she's traveling to Kansas City because getting Florence traveled every month is just not realistic.
Sure.
So she is willing to travel to Kansas City starting in September, and we are wanting to do that every month for her. So that
adds up quickly.
Yes, I think it's over $1,000 a month to be able to provide her 4 to 5 extensive days of training. And what the idea is that we have a pathway for, let's say, even swallowing, and it's pretty ingrained in our brains. But what this method does is it helps build a new pathway for swallowing in our brains, and deeply ingrains that in to where maybe she can have a stronger swallow, and that's a game changer for us. So
okay,
that's one. And I think we have a vehicle that has done really great for us the past couple of years, and we're grateful that Florence is growing, but it's also now a challenge with the vehicle that we have. And so we are looking to get a true modified vehicle for her to be able to continue to go to school therapy. Jesse's family lives in Topeka, about 45 minutes away, and so we have had to cut back on visits there as well because of our transportation. And so that's something that we're looking to do in the near future as well.
We've modified our own minivan, so we need a more
you've kind
safe.
You've made it work.
Yeah,
now you need the right
exactly
the right setup. Yeah, that makes sense. Before we wrap up, you guys, it's so cool. You even made the comment, Christina, that because of your journey, you can kind of see that your marriage is stronger. You talked about how strong your marriage is and how that this journey's kind of solidified that. Jesse, what would you say to you've been on this journey for 4.5 years now. What would you say to a husband that was around the same age and life stage as you, that's just finding out about a similar diagnosis or a life-changing diagnosis for their family? Mm-hmm. What would you say to that husband?
I mean, I again, with everybody being so different, it's hard to say. The situations are so different, but sure. I think the biggest thing would be, in this macho or whatever, but I was taught you take care of your family. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
And I mean, I can't imagine giving up on any of them. And I just say, find that one thing that's going to be your positive to keep you going and grow off of that, because there's going to be hard times, and there's going to be times that are, make you want to question what you're doing, but you've got to, like I said, find that one thing that keeps you pushing and try and build off that. And then those times that are hard, start to go away, and you just, you got to, it's not easy, and you just got to push through. I mean, I don't know what else to say, because you can't say it's going to be, you do this and it's going to work, because right. You can't say that. That's not true. Right. So.
Perfect. Christina, how is this guy sitting next to you different from the guy that you met?
Not very, actually. I picked a good one. He has not wavered or defaulted on anything that he said he was going to do as a husband and a father. And he's grown in his patience and his ability to take on more, I feel like. But he is and has been a rock that you've got to have that. You guys can't fall apart at the same time. You have to have some stability on the ground at all times when you're going through hardships, especially with your child that you love so much. But, there has been times where he's broken down and somehow I'm not. Right. And then most of the time I'm the one breaking down and he's not. And so we really have found a balance when it comes down to that.
How proud your family parents and otherwise, must be of both of you, that you have not only taken on and navigated such a hard thing, but to even step up and be a voice even bigger than Florence, to talk about Florence's purpose in impacting the community and those that everyone she encounters. And you guys are an encouragement and I think an inspiration, no doubt, to other families in your community and to even those outside. I really appreciate you guys taking time to sit down with us and to open your home and to let us get to meet both of your beautiful girls, but to even just to be real and to talk about raw stuff, because there are people that will benefit from hearing someone else's story, and your perspective is unique, and it's one that can shed light and hope and encouragement for those that are where you guys were 4.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Somebody's finding out that similar type of news today. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the driving things behind what we're doing is we want those people to step into an environment, into a world that is more supportive and encouraging,
for sure.
More encouraging than the world that you guys stepped into.
We do too. We, yes, every day there are challenges, every second, every minute there are challenges, but we choose to live in hope and joy, and that is the biggest piece that I would tell a new family is just try to find the joy and hope in every second despite the challenges, because it's there.
Yeah.
At Go Shout Love, we do amazing things for amazing families with kids on rare medical journeys. Each month, we shout love for a featured family through the sale of creative apparel inspired by the child. This month, we honor Florence's drive for inclusion of all kiddos with special needs through the Different is Never Less design. Every purchase from our shop in November will help cover the cost of extensive therapy for Florence, designed to create a new brain pathway that will help her swallow. So head over to our website at goshout.love to make a purchase and shout love for Florence. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep shouting love.